Assalamualaikum and salam sejahtera. Greeting to my panels. My name is Syafiqa Binti Zaian. My matric number is DN180049. I want to present my final year project proposal, which is a preliminary assessment building inspection of the structural defects on selected Klinik Kesihatan in Negeri Johor. This presentation includes 9 things, which are introduction, problem statement, research objectives, research scopes, literature review, methodology flowchart, expected outcome, conclusion, and appendix. First, for the introduction, as we know, due to insufficient land utilization and a high population of people, clients, and contractors are developing more and more high-rise buildings in our modern period. New construction means different things to different people. In truth, there is no precise definition of what is meant by new construction. However, the definition is focused on the age of the buildings, while some may consider a structure less than 5 years old to be new. Others may consider a building less than 10 years old to be new. Okay, when a building fails to meet the needs of its occupants, it is considered to have a building defect. Alternatively, it can be described as a decline, deterioration, or failure in the building's functional performance. A construction defect is a flaw or design mistake that reduces the value of the structure and creates a dangerous situation. While some defects are immediately noticeable, others take years to emerge and are only discovered after the building has been fully completed. Building inspection were needed to ensure that the building is in a safe condition and the occupants in the building do not feel threatened by the structural condition of the building. A visual inspection is the best way for preliminary inspection because it is a straightforward, non-destructive method for determining the condition of a building or structure. It is crucial for quickly identifying constructive issues and determining the right course of action for addressing issues. Although sophisticated the building is produced, the structure of the building certainly did not escape damage and disability issues. Due to a problem, this study was conducted to identify building defect issues in maintenance disability not only affect customer safety, health and comfort, but will also affect the look and aesthetic buildings. By identifying disability issues that happen, the best measure can be taken to reduce defects from repeated. For the problem statement, one of the key components of the building that require attention was the building defect. A building defect is described as a deficiency or shortcoming in a building's function, performance, statutory, or user requirement. Furthermore, a construction defect is a flaw or design error that affects the value of the building and generates a harmful condition. Some defects are visible, but many are not and do not become apparent until years after a building has been constructed. A defective structure is no longer capable of providing the functional, aesthetic, or economic value for which it was designed and built. Defects have an impact on the serviceability, performance, acceptance, or appearance of the building or its combination. Building defect can be a physical fault in the building, such as a defect in the fabric, structure, or services, particularly one that inhibits proper function. Building defects are classified in two types, which is structural defects and non-structural defects. But for this study, it is only focused for the structural defects of buildings. Structural defects are defects in the building frames, such as columns, beams, walls, floors, and foundation. Inefficiency of the building maintenance work system can cause defects and damage to the building. Defects and damage are also common problems any building, regardless of the age of the building and the type of construction thereof. So, based on guidelines on scheduled inspection of building that the local authority may be noticed in writing, communicated to the owner of a building requiring the building check, with which is after the 10 years commencing from the date of the certificate of eligibility occupancy, the first with respect to the building issue, and thereafter at intervals of not more than 10 years from the date of completion of the last inspection onwards the building. Then, monitoring and manual inspection are very important to improve the safety of the building, to ensure that a building is safe to occupy and always in good condition. It is appropriate to periodically inspect it in an effort to identify the type of building defect that occurs, and then carry out follow-up work to treat the defect and maintain the building. So, these 8 klinik kesihatan that were awarded contracts to company contractors, which is Perkhidmatan Sokongan Klinik (PSK), to carry out maintenance work on Klinik Kesihatan in Negeri Johor by monitoring and based on Planned Preventive Maintenance checklist. In this case, preventive maintenance is needed because the aim of the preventive maintenance is safe and usable in terms of durability and safety, reach an acceptable level of usability, and prevent continuous damage that is difficult to repair beyond economic repair, and thus save money. Preventive maintenance itself carries meaning that is maintenance work carried out in accordance with the program or planning plan set based on the maintenance policy, equipment life span, and periodic inspection. Okay, the research objectives in this study is to identify the types of structural defects on the building. Second, to assess the structural building defects on selected klinik kesihatan in Negeri Johor. Okay, for the research scopes, this research is mainly focusing the types of structural defects on the building to investigate the structure of building defect 8 of Klinik Kesihatan Area Negeri Johor. This research is to do some observations on structural defects in the building's frames, including column, slab, beam and staircase. The method that are used to this preliminary inspection is based on Planned Preventive Maintenance element. 8 klinik kesihatan involved in this study are: the first one is Klinik Kesihatan Labis, second Klinik Kesihatan Bandar IOI Segamat, third Klinik Kesihatan Bakri, next Klinik Kesihatan Bandar Maharani, and then Klinik Kesihatan Jalan Mengkibul Keluang, next Klinik Kesihatan Sempang Regam, then Klinik Kesihatan Pontian, finally Klinik Kesihatan Taman Universiti Skudai. Okay, let's move to the literature review. The types of defects, which is cracking. Structural cracks are often characterized by tensile, compression and shear cracks. If any of the structural parts fail to support the imposed tensile load, cracking will develop in the tensile. So, the first types of defect, which is transverse crack. Transverse crack is after hardening. Transverse crack can be caused by excessive loading from structural, thermal or conditional shrinking of the concrete. For the longitudinal crack, the reinforcement bar are directly affected. Rusting of the reinforcing bars will lead to cracks, which will eventually lead to spalling and the cover's disappearance. For the shear crack, a crack will form if the building's structural components are subjected to any kind of stress or movement. Another factor that contributes to this sort of cracking is a material shear component's capacity being smaller than the shear force acting on them. For the plastic settlement crack, cracking in the plastic settlement will develop if there is a lot of bleeding and constraint during construction. However, if the concrete mixture is workable, the concrete will be solid and water will only bleed from the top. It is common for the crack to form along the length of the reinforcement bar. Next, crazing crack. Fine cracks are the only ones of this class. In the buildings, it is a minor cosmetic problem. It is not possible to notice the cracks. However, if the concrete is wet and dry, we can see the crack patterns. This form of cracking is caused by insufficient curing, too wet mixing, finishing when bleeding is still present, and chemical reaction like carbonation where the carbon dioxide reacts with the cement. Finally, map crack. It is known as a pattern crack. It is a form of crack. It can be found in almost any concrete construction as a result of alkali silica reaction ASR, as well as concrete drying and shrinkage. This crack form, preventing it can be done by preventing the addition of water or completing while bleeding continues. For the Planned Preventive Maintenance, Preventive Maintenance or PPM, as it is more often known, is a type of planned service that is often referred to as scheduled or planned maintenance. The most valuable asset an individual, company or organization owns is almost always a pitch of real estate. Maintaining the asset's value requires regular planned preventive maintenance (PPM). Planned preventive maintenance (PPM) is critical to the long-term reliability and integrity of a facility or asset. A property or facilities manager often implements and oversees an individual building's specified maintenance schedule. Reactive maintenance expenses can be reduced by 12 until 18% with a well-implemented planned maintenance program. So, the additional key advantage includes to ensure compliance with health and safety regulations, a full roof inspection is required. This presents a significant health and safety hazard. Second, it is less probable that we'll have to deal with major unforeseen repair because of frequent maintenance inspection. Third, more efficient use of labor and financial resources, which is maintenance work and financial charges can be spread out more equally over the course of the year. Finally, warranty compliance, that is PPM, is a common warranty compliance criterion. Finally, for the building condition assessment in a visual inspection, building condition assessment are a type of well-being inspection for the structure. It is used to ascertain the general state of a structure for the following purposes. The first one is ascertain if the structure is safe to occupy. Second, determination of the building's defects, risk and failure. Third, maintaining a monitor on the asset's condition and usage. Fourth, prediction of future deterioration or performance forecast. And finally, valuation of asset. So, begin with a site visit by engineers to check the buildings and its immediate surrounding. This includes activity such as photography or video recordings, taking measurements, interviewing the person in charge, and reviewing as-built drawings. Finally, prepare a full report that includes an observation, problems, and recommendation or proposal based on this information. So, the building condition assessment is a critical process that evaluates the physical condition and functionality of a structure. So, assessing the true condition of building structure is critical for developing a building maintenance program or undertaking building repair work. So, for the methodology, which is methodology flowchart, in this study, choose the qualitative research because in my study, it involves some observation. Qualitative observation is the process of collecting data or information through the subjective method. First, in the flowchart is start, and then the problem statement, which is building defect. So we do preliminary assessment, then research objectives. The first one, to assess the structural building defects on selected Klinik Kesihatan in Negeri Johor. Second one, to identify the types of structural defects on the building. From these two objectives, we get the primary data and secondary data. The primary data is the significant way of data collection. created in accordance with the study methodology. According to other resources, the primary source of data information is the most accurate and trustworthy because it comes straight from the source of the problem. For the secondary data, typically secondary data is gathered from articles, journals and websites that have been published. It is compared to the primary source of information and the actual importance of the data collected from secondary source by assessing the opinions of the people who are included in the primary source. So from the research objective, we go through the Planned Preventive Maintenance (PPM) and Building Condition Assessment (BCA) based on the PPM checklist and cater to the data collection, which is to obtain data collection. A preliminary inspection was made on selected 8 Klinik Kesihatan in Negeri Johor to identify structural defects found in the building in each Klinik Kesihatan. The method used to identify the structural defect in a building at Klinik Kesihatan is based on Planned Preventive Maintenance checklist, and then do visual inspection and Planned Preventive Maintenance (PPM) checklist, as I said. Then structural defect on column, beam, slab and staircase, which is the element in the Planned Preventive Maintenance checklist. Then conduct an assessment. Next, analysis and discussion. Do some analysis and discussion, and end of the methodology flow chart. For the expected outcome in this study, the findings based on this preliminary inspection is visual inspection will help the study to know the condition of the structure of the building and to identify the types of the structural defects. Second, the results of this study can see the defects on the building structure through Planned Preventive Maintenance checklist according to the listed elements, which is column, beam, slab and staircase. Last but not least, the conclusion. As conclusion, this study is to prevent building from structural defects and failure for the sake of the occupants and public safety, which is based on guideline on scheduled inspection of buildings that the local authority may by notice in writing communicated to the owner of a building requiring the building check, which is after the 10 years commencing from the date of the certificate of eligibility occupied, the first with respect to the building issue, and thereafter at intervals of not more than 10 years from the date of completion of the last inspection onwards the building. Okay, this is the Planned Preventive Maintenance checklist in the appendix. We can see the element that listed in the Planned Preventive Maintenance checklist. Okay, that's all from me. Thank you.